As a 30-year-old television screenwriter living in Seattle, I've spent the better part of my career writing drama, plot twists, betrayals, love triangles. But nothing I've ever put on paper could prepare me for the betrayal that unfolded right inside my own family. My name is Harper Dawson, and up until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. I had a job I loved, an apartment that finally felt like mine, and a fiancé, Liam, who felt like the safe place I could always return to. He was 31, charming without trying too hard. Kind in that quiet, thoughtful way, and funny in the dry, sarcastic way that balanced out my own intensity. But things started to change when my younger sister, Chloe, came back into town. She was 27. A fashion influencer based in New York who was planning a glamorous spring wedding here in Seattle. Her fiancé, Mark, a plastic surgeon, had recently moved to the city for work, and the plan was to settle down here after the wedding. I was genuinely happy for her, at least, at first. Chloe and I had always had a complicated relationship. She was the golden girl of the family. Radiant, loud, magnetic. I was the quiet one, the one who scribbled ideas into notebooks during family dinners and didn't mind slipping into the background. When Chloe arrived, she brought her whirlwind energy with her. She was staying with my parents while planning the final stages of her wedding. Naturally, she wanted Liam and me involved, especially Liam. At first, it was harmless. She'd ask him to weigh in on flower arrangements or accompany her to venue tours when I was busy with work. But slowly, something shifted. I couldn't quite name it at first. Maybe it was the way she laughed at everything he said, even the jokes he'd told me dozens of times, the ones that barely got a smile out of me anymore. Or the way she found excuses to touch him, a light hand on his arm when she laughed, a shoulder bump as they walked side by side. It wasn't anything explicit. It was subtle, barely there. But I write characters for a living. I study body language, tension, chemistry. And what I saw between Chloe and Liam wasn't nothing. Still, I tried to rationalize it. I told myself Chloe was just excited and flustered with wedding stress, and Liam, well, he was polite to a fault. Maybe I was reading too much into things. Maybe I was letting my own scripts infect reality. But then came the Thursday dinner at my parents' house. We were all seated outside under string lights in the backyard, sipping wine and eating grilled salmon. Chloe sat directly across from Liam. She laughed at everything he said, leaned in when he talked, brushed a piece of lint off his sleeve with a smile that lasted just a second too long. I felt a pang in my gut, that tightening in your stomach that says, pay attention. That night, after we got home, I turned to Liam as we got ready for bed. Did you notice how Chloe was acting tonight? I asked, keeping my tone light. He looked over at me, confused. What do you mean? I hesitated. She was a little much. The laughing, the touching. I don't know. It just felt weird. He smiled like I was being silly. Harper, come on. She's just excited about the wedding. You know how she is. Always dramatic. I nodded. But as I turned off the light and crawled into bed, my mind stayed awake. Because something was shifting. And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't tell if I was writing the story, or if I had just become a character in someone else's. In the following weeks, Chloe found more and more reasons to spend time with Liam. It started with innocent-sounding texts. Can Liam come help me pick ribbon colors? Mark's too busy. Harper, do you mind if I borrow Liam for the tasting? He's got better taste than me. At first, I didn't think much of it. I had deadlines to meet for the series I was writing, a family drama about betrayal, ironically. So I let it slide, trusting that my sister and my fiancé knew where the lines were. But little by little, I began to feel like I was watching a story unfold, only this time, I wasn't the one holding the pen. The most unsettling moment came at Chloe's bridal shower, which my parents insisted on hosting at their place. I arrived late after an editing session ran long. The backyard was already buzzing with laughter, pastel decorations, and too many champagne flutes. As I walked in, I spotted Chloe and Liam standing together under the pergola. She was wearing a silky ivory jumpsuit, laughing with her hand on his chest like they were in the middle of a private joke. His smile faltered slightly when he saw me approach, and he stepped back instinctively, creating distance that hadn't been their seconds before. My mother called me over before I could say anything, and the moment passed. But something in me hardened. That night, I confronted him again. "Do you enjoy spending time with her?" I asked flatly as we cleaned up in the kitchen. Liam blinked. "Chloe? I mean, she's fine. She's just high energy. You know that. High energy is one thing. Acting like your date is another." He let out a short laugh. "Harper, are you seriously jealous of your sister?" His words hit me like a slap, not because they were cruel, but because they made me feel small. Silly. Like I was making up problems that didn't exist. I forced myself to breathe through the knot forming in my chest. "I'm not jealous," I said slowly. "But I'm not blind either. She touches you all the time. She's constantly finding ways to be alone with you. And you never stop her." Liam leaned against the counter, rubbing his jaw. "I just don't want to be rude. She's your sister. I don't want to start drama right before her wedding. But you don't see how this looks? How it makes me feel?" I asked, my voice rising. He sighed. "Harper, you write stories for a living. Maybe you're letting fiction bleed into real life." And there it was again, that insinuation. That I couldn't tell the difference between truth and plot. I went quiet. There was no point in arguing with someone who had already decided I was imagining it all. From that day forward, I stopped asking. I stopped pointing things out. But I didn't stop noticing. I paid attention the way a screenwriter pays attention to a character's unraveling, watching, cataloging, waiting for the moment everything falls apart. And it was coming. I could feel it. Because in every scene, there's a moment where the lie starts to crack. And I was getting closer to it with every uncomfortable smile, every forced laugh, every look they thought I didn't catch. A few days later, Chloe invited us all to a weekend wine tasting in Woodinville, one of those pre-wedding relax and bond getaways she loved to plan. Mark's family owned a cottage there, and she wanted everyone to feel the magic before the big day. I almost didn't go. Work was piling up and my deadlines were suffocating. But Liam insisted we make an appearance, saying it would look strange if I skipped. So I went, reluctantly. The cottage was beautiful. Rustic, airy, vines trailing down white pergolas. Everyone seemed relaxed. Everyone but me. Because from the moment we arrived, I noticed Chloe sticking to Liam like perfume. She'd loop her arm through his on walks through the vineyard, ask him to help open bottles, or pull him aside to discuss music choices while Mark and I awkwardly stood nearby. Mark was kind but distracted, constantly taking calls from the hospital. I could see he didn't notice what I saw, or maybe he chose not to. That evening, after dinner, a few of us lingered on the patio while others cleaned up. I went inside for a moment to grab my sweater. When I returned, I saw them. Chloe and Liam, standing at the edge of the vineyard under the fading light, heads close, her hand brushing his arm, then resting on his chest. He didn't step back. I froze. From where I stood, I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could feel it. Something more than casual. Something that made my stomach twist, as if sensing my presence. Liam turned and saw me. His body tensed, and Chloe quickly dropped her hand. They both stepped apart like teenagers caught doing something they shouldn't. I didn't say a word. I simply walked past them, expression unreadable, and went back to my room. Later that night, Liam came in like nothing had happened. He slid under the covers beside me, scrolling his phone. I turned to him, heart pounding. What were you and Chloe talking about earlier? He paused for a beat. She wanted to go over the entrance song options again. She's second-guessing her original picks. That required you to stand that close? He looked at me, brows raised. Harper, really? Yes, I said firmly. Really? He dropped his phone onto the nightstand and sat up. I don't know what you want from me. Every time we're near Chloe, it's like I'm walking on eggshells. I want you to set boundaries, I said. I want you to treat this like you're engaged to me, not trying to spare my sister's feelings. Liam ran his hands through his hair. I'm not doing anything wrong. Chloe is your sister. I'm just being polite. Polite doesn't mean letting her touch you or whisper with you behind my back. He sighed heavily, staring at the ceiling. I think you're seeing things that aren't there. That sentence, it broke something inside me. Because what I was seeing was real. And the fact that he refused to even acknowledge the discomfort he caused me, that wasn't just frustrating. It was betrayal, dressed as indifference. We turned our backs to each other that night in bed. And I stared into the dark, wide awake, while the script of my life continued to spiral into a genre I never wanted to write. I lasted 3 more days. 3 days of pretending everything was fine. 3 days of responding to group texts about bachelorette themes and floral centerpieces, while my stomach twisted every time I saw Liam glance at his phone. By the 3rd night, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted Chloe. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? Just us. She responded almost immediately. Sure. Blue Hour Cafe at 10. Complete with a heart emoji. As if she hadn't been slowly driving a wedge into my life. When I arrived, she was already there, perched on a stool by the window, sipping an oat milk latte. Her manicured nails tapping rhythmically against the cup. She looked like someone who had slept well, someone whose conscience was entirely clear. Harper, she beamed, waving me over. You look exhausted. Writing late again. I sat down slowly, hands clenched around my cup. Chloe, I said, cutting to the point, we need to talk. Her smile faltered just slightly, then returned. Okay, is everything all right? No, I said. It's not. And I think you know why. She blinked. I don't. I took a deep breath, my voice trembling but steady. I've seen the way you act around Liam. The laughing, the touching, the private conversations. Chloe, it's not normal. And it's not okay. A shadow passed across her face, but she recovered quickly. Oh my God, she said, laughing lightly. Is this really about me being friendly? Harper, you write soap operas for a living. You're literally trained to imagine drama. I didn't flinch. Don't gaslight me. That word landed like a slap. Chloe's expression darkened. Are you accusing me of flirting with your fiancé? I'm saying you have been, consistently. And I've asked him to set boundaries, but he won't. So now I'm asking you. As my sister. Her smile disappeared completely. What do you want me to say? She snapped. That I'm a homewrecker? That I want your precious Liam? Come on, Harper. You think I don't have enough going on with my own wedding? Then why are you so focused on my relationship? I shot back. The tension between us was suffocating. People at nearby tables had started to glance over. She leaned in, voice low and sharp. Maybe you should ask yourself why you're so insecure. If your relationship is that fragile, maybe that's not my fault. That cut deeper than I expected. I blinked back the sting behind my eyes. This isn't about insecurity. It's about respect. And you've been stepping over that line again and again. Chloe scoffed and pushed her chair back with a harsh scrape. You're unbelievable. You always have to play the victim. Always the sad little writer girl who thinks the world is out to get her. She stood up, tossing her napkin onto the table. You know what, Harper? If you can't trust your sister, that's your problem. Then she was gone, heels clicking on tile, her blonde ponytail swinging behind her like a battle flag. I sat there alone, my coffee now cold. The emotions hit all at once. Anger, grief, betrayal. Had I just destroyed my relationship with my sister? Or had I finally admitted it was already broken? I didn't know anymore. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the climax. Not yet. Something worse was coming. And I could feel it. The silence was louder than the fight. After that morning at the cafe, Chloe stopped speaking to me entirely. No texts. No calls. Not even a passive-aggressive meme in the family group chat, which for her was practically a public protest. It didn't take long for my parents to get involved. My mom called me that same night. Harper, she began, her voice already tight with judgment. What on earth did you say to Chloe? I closed my eyes, already bracing. I told her I was uncomfortable with how she acts around Liam. You accused your sister, a bride-to-be, of flirting with your fiancé. A week before her wedding, she snapped. She is flirting with him. And he's letting her, I replied, voice shaking. There was a pause, followed by a sharp sigh. Harper, this is ridiculous. You've always been a little intense. You take everything too seriously. Chloe's affectionate, that's all. No. She's not affectionate, she's boundaryless, I said, louder than I meant to. And you don't get to minimize what I'm feeling just because it doesn't fit your perfect family narrative. But my mother had already tuned out. You need to fix this. Apologize. For her sake. For ours. She hung up before I could say anything else. The next few days blurred into a fog of shame, guilt, and suppressed rage. Liam continued walking around like nothing was wrong. When I tried to bring up what happened with Chloe, he waved it off like a pesky gnat. You cornered her at a cafe the week before her wedding, he said, his tone edged with exasperation. What did you expect? A thank you card. I expected you to back me up, I said. Or at least believe me. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Harper, you're projecting. You've been writing about betrayal for months. Maybe it's bleeding into your real life. There it was again, that word. Projecting. Like I was making it all up. A prisoner of my own imagination. It broke something in me. Because when the people closest to you gaslight you, it's not just invalidating, it's paralyzing. I started to second-guess everything. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I had misread the signals. Maybe Chloe really was just overly affectionate. And Liam was just being nice. But then I remembered the vineyard. The way they stepped apart too quickly. The hand on his chest. The way his smile faded when he saw me. No. I wasn't imagining that. Still, the damage was done. Chloe had painted me as unstable. My parents believed her. Liam believed her, or wanted to. I began pulling away from everyone. I skipped the final bridesmaids meeting. I stopped answering group messages. I even told my boss I needed a few days off. She thought it was for writing fatigue. I didn't correct her. I just needed space. From everything. But the problem with space is that it gives your mind too much room to wander. I lay awake every night, reliving every look, every laugh. Every moment that didn't feel right, playing back scenes in my mind like rough drafts of a nightmare script I hadn't wanted to write. And yet, some part of me knew. The climax hadn't happened yet. Because in stories, real or fictional, there's always a breaking point. And mine was coming. It was a Thursday afternoon, 6 days before Chloe's wedding. I hadn't planned on going to my parents' house, but something inside me itched. A voice I couldn't silence, whispering, "You need to see it. You need to know." I told myself I was just dropping off a book my mom had lent me. But deep down, I was chasing confirmation because doubt is poison, and the only cure is truth, no matter how brutal. Their car was in the driveway. Chloe's. And Liam's. I parked across the street. My chest was tight. My palms were cold. I walked up the path, the familiar crunch of gravel under my boots. As I neared the porch, I heard voices, not from inside the house, but from the side yard. Near the old garden path that curved behind the garage. Curious and terrified, I stepped off the porch and followed the sound. And that's when I saw them. They were partly hidden behind the climbing jasmine, just beyond the trellis. But not hidden enough. Chloe's back was against the brick wall. Liam was standing between her legs. His hands on her waist, her arms around his neck. They were kissing deeply, shamelessly. Her blouse was slightly undone. His fingers slipped beneath the fabric like it was routine. They were so absorbed in each other, they didn't even see me standing there frozen in the middle of the garden path, heart hammering like a war drum. I forgot how to breathe. It was like watching my life implode in slow motion. Every suspicion, every ignored gut feeling, every gaslit conversation, it all clicked into place with the sickening clarity of a knife's edge. The rage came first, then the heartbreak, and then I screamed. "What the hell is this?" They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Chloe's face drained of color. Liam's eyes went wide. And he stammered, "Harper, wait, it's not. Don't you dare say it's not what it looks like," I snapped, my voice shaking with fury. "Because it's exactly what it looks like. And you know it." Tears blurred my vision. I looked at Chloe, who was now frantically adjusting her shirt. "My sister. My own sister," I whispered. "Was it not enough to humiliate me quietly? You had to do it here? At our parents' house." "Harper," she began, her voice trembling. "No," I cut her off. "Don't even try. Don't you dare try." Liam reached toward me, his voice panicked. "It was a mistake. We didn't mean." I stepped back, disgusted. "You didn't mean to get caught. That's what you didn't mean." For a moment, none of us moved. We stood in a triangle of silence, broken only by the distant chirp of a sprinkler timer. And then I turned. I didn't run. I walked, each step a refusal to crumble in front of them. I got into my car, drove away on autopilot. I didn't know where I was going until I pulled into a hotel parking lot 20 minutes from my apartment. I didn't go home. I couldn't sleep in the same bed Liam had just gotten out of to go grope my sister behind a bush. Inside the hotel room, I stood staring at the beige wall for what felt like hours. Then I picked up my phone and texted him. "We're done. Don't contact me again." Then I turned it off. The world went silent. And I welcomed it. I spent the next 2 days in that hotel room barely moving. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat numb. Like someone had turned off all the switches inside me. My phone stayed off. And when I turned it on briefly, the notifications flooded in. Missed calls from Liam, from Chloe, even from my mom. A few voicemails from Chloe that started with please, Harper, and dissolved into static and sobs. But I didn't listen to any of them. I deleted the ones from Liam without opening them. I had nothing left to say to either of them. But there was one person I hadn't heard from, one person I knew didn't know the truth. And he deserved to. Mark, Chloe's fiancé. I didn't want to be the one to destroy his world. But I also knew what it felt like to have yours destroyed by a lie. And he had a right to choose what happened next, based on truth, not a performance. So on Sunday night, for days before the wedding, I found his number in my contacts. I had it from when I helped coordinate one of their engagement dinner reservations months ago. My fingers trembled as I tapped call. It rang twice. Then, hello? His voice was calm, steady, unaware. Hi, Mark. It's Harper. A pause. Oh. Hey. I've been meaning to reach out. Chloe said you were taking some space, and I just wanted to. I cut him off. I need to tell you something. And it's not going to be easy to hear. Another pause. Okay, he said quietly. I'm listening. I took a deep breath. Then I told him everything. I told him about the strange behavior. The touches. The laughter. The whispers. I told him about Liam brushing it off, my parents blaming me, Chloe accusing me of insecurity. I told him about the vineyard, the cafe, the silence that followed. And finally, I told him about what I saw in the garden. I described it exactly as it happened. No exaggeration, no emotion. Just facts. When I finished, there was a long, heavy silence on the line. Then, finally, thank you, he said softly, for telling me the truth. That's all I wanted, I said. You deserve to know who you're marrying. He cleared his throat. I do. I expected him to ask questions, to yell, to hang up. But instead, he said, I need time to think. But I'm glad you told me. I'm really, really glad you did. Then the call ended. And I sat on the bed, staring at my reflection in the TV screen. I didn't know what he'd do. Maybe he'd forgive her. Maybe he'd believe a twisted version of the story. Maybe he'd go through with the wedding because it was easier than starting over. All I knew was, I had done what I could. I had spoken the truth no one else wanted to hear. And whatever happened next, it was finally out of my hands. But deep down, I hoped the story wasn't over yet. Because some endings need to be rewritten. I didn't expect to hear anything back. After my call with Mark, I went completely off-grid. I shut off my phone again, left the hotel only for food, and watched the wedding countdown unfold from a distance like someone observing the fall of a collapsing empire. Wednesday came. The day Chloe had chosen for her big event, sunset bows at a waterfront vineyard, white roses, live quartet, and her custom Vera Wang gown flown in from New York. It was supposed to be the day she got everything she ever wanted. Instead, it became the day everything unraveled. I was sitting on the hotel bed in silence, legs folded beneath me, sipping lukewarm tea when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, fully prepared to ignore it until I saw the name. Mia, my cousin. The one person in the family who still believed I wasn't making it all up. I answered. Her voice was frantic, breathless, and electric with shock. Oh my God, Harper. You are not going to believe what just happened. What? I whispered, heart suddenly pounding. I'm at the wedding. Or I was. I sat up straight. What happened? She took a sharp breath. Everything was fine at first. Everyone was in place, music was playing. Chloe was walking down the aisle, smiling like this was her movie premiere. Mark looked calm, almost too calm. I held my breath. Then, right before they started the vows, Mia said, he stepped forward and raised his hand. And he said, and I swear I'm not making this up, he said, I can't do this. My heart stopped. He turned to the guests and said, I was ready to marry Chloe. But after what I've learned this week, I realize I can't commit my life to someone who would betray her own sister. I'm sorry to everyone here, but I won't marry someone who doesn't know the meaning of loyalty. I pressed a hand to my chest. He said that? Out loud? In front of everyone? Yes, Mia exclaimed. People gasped. Chloe froze. And then Mark turned to your parents, Harper, and said, now you know why your daughter Harper isn't here today. She saw the truth when none of you did. I covered my mouth. I didn't know whether to cry or scream. Mia continued, voice low and reverent. Chloe started sobbing, like full-on collapse. Your mom looked like someone had slapped her. Your dad didn't move, and Mark just walked away, calm, like a man who had just walked out of a burning building with his dignity intact. I couldn't speak. My chest felt tight with something that wasn't quite joy, but it wasn't pain either. Vindication, maybe. Mia added, softer now. People are still talking about it. Nobody knows what to say. You were right. And everyone knows it now. Tears welled in my eyes, not the shattered, gasping kind, but the silent kind that say, finally. We spoke for a few more minutes before I hung up. Then I sat on the bed, staring at the late afternoon light pouring in through the curtains. It was done. The truth was no longer a burden I carried alone. The wedding didn't happen. Chloe's perfect day crumbled in the most poetic way imaginable, not because I sought revenge, but because I refused to stay silent. I didn't win. There were no victors in this story. But there was justice. And, for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. In the end, I didn't walk away with a fiancé or a family that fully understood me. But I walked away with something far more important, clarity. They all told me I was imagining things. That I was too dramatic, too sensitive, too emotional. But I wasn't. I was just the only one brave enough to look the truth in the eye. And that day, when the truth came crashing down at the altar, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. Because I learned that silence doesn't protect peace, it only protects the people who are comfortable with your pain. So I spoke up. I walked away. And I began writing the next chapter of my life on my own terms.